Amber Griffiths here with Your Brand by Design. And what I am noticing as I'm traveling this week, I'm in New Orleans, I'm in Louisiana, and it's absolutely fabulous. And we get to see all kinds of things that I don't get to see in Utah, including the color green. Now, Utah has its own variation thereof. But honestly, this close to the waterfront, it's a whole different level of green. But as we're going on this tour, I don't know how many of you have been to Louisiana, how many of you experienced some of this. One of the coolest things we've been able to do is tour one of the cemeteries. Now, I realize that may seem morbid. That could seem a little weird to spend on your day on vacation. However, the cemeteries here in Louisiana are above ground. They're in like tombs, and they're amazing. And you get a chance to, as we were going through this tour, we had a guided tour, so we had this woman telling us all these amazing stories. And we would stop and it was raining. I mean, pouring rain. Again, not like Utah rain, torrential, I'm right by the river kind of rain. Tons and tons of water. And we're sitting in a cemetery, wishing we had galoshes like we did when we were 4, and umbrellas and raincoats just soaked through. But we're listening to this woman as she talks because she has such amazing stories. And we'd stop in front of a certain tomb, and she would tell us who was in there, how it was built, how many different people were in there, because you can actually put more than one person in a tomb. That part's kind of more, but I'm not going to get into it. But you can have more than one person, so we become family tombs. So we would stop by a new tomb, it would start breaking down, so she would tell us a story about how it was being rebuilt, how it was being reinforced and recreated so that it was still beautiful and kind of preserving these beautiful things. Well, what I noticed about her is that about every third or fourth story, she would start telling it, and she would get really, really animated and really excited about what was going on. And the one was particularly about this rifle back in the wars, and had all these details, and really, really excited about telling us the story. And we were right there with her. We were following every single word, going, "Oh my gosh, this story is amazing." And then at the end, she's like, "But of course, they're not buried here. They're buried someplace over there, or so and so died, and then one's buried over in France." And we kind of looked at each other like, but we were talking about this cemetery, right? This is where we were going. So I thought, okay, well, that just must have been a really cool story. She got distracted. It's fine. So then we kept going, and about another third or fourth story, she started talking about, again, the story about the people who were buried here, how it was built, how it's been preserved, who's in it, who gets to see it, how often it gets to be there. And as she's telling us the story, somewhere about 5 or 6 minute mark, she would say, "Oh, but they're not buried here. They actually were taken back to be buried with their family in Paris, or they're back over here, and they're in a cemetery across town, of course." So as I'm listening to her, I realized that I've lost interest. We've been listening to her for about 45 minutes. The tour is an hour, and I've just completely tuned out. Because as much as the stories are entertaining and they're exciting, they have nothing to do with the cemetery we are currently in. They have nothing to do with these beautiful tombstones that we are 6 inches away from. The marble and all the different materials that she's talking to us about aren't in this cemetery at all. It's completely different. So even though it's a lovely story, it lost me, because now I don't care. It has nothing to do with her. I was with her right up to the moment, and then I'm like, what the heck was that? And so what ended up happening is, not only was I thoroughly confused, I lost faith in her ability to tell me about this cemetery. She clearly didn't want to be here. She wanted to talk about the other cemetery. But here we were all stuck here in the rain listening to it anyway. This is what happens when you dilute your brand. So when I say story, I don't necessarily mean this is the story you tell yourself about what should be happening, about what you get to do, what you have to do, what you can't do. I mean your actual story, your actual messaging. And if it's not solid, and if it's not consistent and cohesive, and if it's not on brand, you will lose your people. So I want to share with you today one of the easiest ways to tell if your stories are still on message, and how you can tell if that's what's going on. And then also share with you the 2 biggest things I can see that happen when your brand isn't upheld, when your stories don't support, but rather dilute your brand. So here's how this happens in business and branding. You are really, really excited about your product and your service, A, B, and C, right? And then all of a sudden you're offering D and E, or maybe even you're offering Q. You're offering something completely different. So you're focusing on, it's kind of like they tell you should have 7 or so different streams of income, right? All those streams of income should be related to the same business, the same industry, the same service, the same ideal client. You can get money from different ways, but it should all be related. So if you're offering business coaching over here and you're selling pickles and hot dogs over here, that's diluted. That's where you're telling me a story about some other cemetery, and I don't care. So that's how you can tell if your stories, sorry, we're a little noisy here, this is live. So that's how you can tell if your brand story is not supporting what you said it was. The other thing that can happen is if you are on a soapbox and you talk really strongly about authenticity and about being genuine and about being integrity, and then from stage you decide to offer a 20% discount if they hurry and do it right now. Somewhere in there is a disconnect between what you said you were and what you are saying now. Your story, your message is not in alignment. Your story is diluting your brand, and you can tell because now there are some people that's absolutely in their brand. Their persona, their brand is, I'm all about acting now, and you will always get a discount if you show up. If you're at my event, you will always get a discount. That's part of their brand. Fine. I don't agree with that personally, but that's my own stuff. If I were to stand up and from stage offer a 20% discount on anything, it would feel so out of alignment. I would feel it. Those people in the audience, you would feel it. You'd be like, but she has this whole soapbox about how not to offer discounts, how that's not sustainable, how it's not something, because if you devalue your business and your service, it makes it even easier for your ideal client or the common person walking by to devalue it, right? I have a whole soapbox about that. So if I stand up and say, yep, this is what we're doing, and oh yeah, if you act today, you get this discount. There might be people who rush to the back, maybe. But the majority of the people, especially my ideal clients, are gonna go, that feels weird, and I've lost you. I've told a story that is not supporting my brand. It does not support my personality, my persona, and what I promised to you as a brand strategist with your brand by design. I've lied. On some level, you can feel it. Even if you can't quite pinpoint it, you can feel that and be like, ugh, something's off. That's your story not supporting your brand. Does that make sense? So that gives you two different opportunities to look at it and go, wow, yep, that's different. If, for example, if your website says one thing, but every time I meet you, it's completely different than what your website says, or your social media posts talk about being very neutral, and they're very beautiful posts, but they're not controversial at all. You don't take a stand on anything. And then I meet you and you are incredibly controversial and you take a stand on absolutely everything, whether it affects you or not. That's also the part where your brand is being diluted by a bad story, by some story that might entertain you, but it has nothing to do with your brand, okay? Here's what happens though, when you tell a story that doesn't support it. Like this sweet little woman who had lovely stories in the cemetery, she spent the first 20 minutes gaining our trust, explaining who she was and how she was amazing and how she knew exactly what these were, how she knew all the stories from all the things, she's been living here for decades, etc., etc. And every time she told a story, we got more and more engaged and we trusted her more. When she flips and starts telling a story about something else entirely, she not only confused me, but she lost my trust. That's what happens with you in your business as well. If you tell a story that doesn't support your brand, and I'm talking 100% in alignment with your brand, you confuse your clients. I mean, think about it. If you are walking them through a path and they are blindfolded, and you have their hand and you're walking them down this maze, right? And then all of a sudden you let go of your hand, you let go of their hand, and you're like, okay, well, good luck with that. Hope you get out. I'm gonna go over here. And you just leave them there. You have led them on this path with your business, and suddenly you are telling a story that is completely contradictory or has nothing to do with supporting your brand. You will confuse the crap out of them. And a confused mind says no. Exactly. Confused mind always says no. The other thing you will do is you will lose their trust. So not only are they like, where the heck did that come from? How am I supposed to understand? She was talking about this business coaching, and all of a sudden she's telling me about how I can get 2-for-1 pickles over here at the other stand. I'm confused. So I'm questioning your authority. I'm questioning your validity. I'm questioning your ability to teach me anything, right? The other thing is it affects my trust. Now, hey, Catherine, how's Canada? So not only am I confused, but now I don't trust you. Now I'm like, you know what? You told me you were going to take me here. You got me part way. Then you left. So then, now what? So I don't know if I'm taking a left turn to Albuquerque. I don't know if I'm going this way or that way. But what I do know is you're not my person anymore. I can't trust you because you are unclear. I'm thinking, she doesn't know where she's going. She is as lost as I am. Why am I going to pay her to help me? Why would I buy your products and services if you're uncertain? Do you understand how bad that is? Do you understand how that can affect your bottom line? Something as simple as a mixed message, as a broken message. Yay, it's not snowing. Catherine, come on down to Louisiana. It's warm. It's 75 degrees. It's fabulous. There's no snow anywhere. When you tell a story that is out of alignment with your brand, you disconnect with your ideal clients, period. That affects your bottom line. Not only that, but not only does it affect your immediate brand value, your bottom line goes down. Your profits plummet if you are disconnecting with your people like that. The more they lose their trust in you, the more you confuse them. That actually completely deflates your brand equity. So not only do they not trust you in this moment, they're done with you, and people will talk. So your ideal clients, like one of the things is, I asked a colleague of mine. I said, a friend of mine is asking about a program. I know you invested in that program. Would you recommend it? And as she hemmed and hawed and was like, I can't tell, and then all of a sudden she went, wait, I'm not re-engaging. I guess that's actually a pretty good referral. Or at least you know how I feel about it if I'm not going to put more money into it. Oh, it's going to rain, yay. Your people won't invest in you now, and they won't invest in you later. And the more you confuse people, and the more you zig and zag and are wishy-washy and tell stories about some other cemetery, the less likely you are to keep anyone engaged, to keep anyone invested in you at all. So I want to challenge you. Look at your stories. Look at the way you're posting on social media. Look at where you are networking and how you show up. Look at your website. How is that messaging coming across? Is it consistent? Are you offering discounts here and then negating it over here? Are you saying we value customer service and we are absolutely customer centric, and then avoiding phone calls and ghosting people over here? That kind of a disconnect kills your brand. It sucks your profits right out. It's going to rain on me. I should be quiet. I would challenge you to look at your stories. Make sure they're consistent. Make sure the message you are delivering at every turn is in alignment, is consistent, supports the same thing, right? That's how you build brand equity. That kind of consistency and cohesiveness and substance, that's how you build trust. That's how you are absolutely top of mind when the next person goes to buy. That's how you create that consistency, and by telling stories that will last long past you coming off stage. If you have any questions about that, you and I should absolutely have a conversation. If you think your stories are telling the same message, if you think every time you speak you are on brand, if you think but you're not certain that when you get up on stage it's a beautiful presentation but it's off brand like crazy because you're not selling, you're not closing the deal, it's a pretty good indicator that you're off brand somewhere in that presentation. We should chat. You can absolutely snag time on my calendar. It's yourbrandbydesign.com/duet, D-U-E-T. Find some time that works with your schedule, and you and I will have a conversation. And if we need to sit down and analyze every single piece, we can totally do that. If you are ready to create brand equity in your business in a way that makes an impact, makes a difference, makes an impression, gives your ideal clients something to sink their teeth into for years to come, then we should definitely work together. We should definitely have a conversation. It all starts with yourbrandbydesign.com/duet. And most of you have my email